A little louder. Here we go. Good morning, everyone. Great. I'd like to welcome all of you to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Robstown. Welcome to all of you who decided that a sunny day is the perfect day to spend indoors with us. Thank you so much for coming to be with us in our sanctuary. To all those who choose to join us on Zoom, thank you for you. With all the choices we have for Sunday mornings, I'm glad you chose us. This morning, we have Anna filling in for us because Carly wasn't feeling well. Thank you so much, Anna, for filling in past today. And I'd like to give a shout out to Justine for being on tech for us. Thank you. For over 15 years, UUFP has been a liberal religious voice in the Pottstown area. You know, when I grew up, I did not realize that most people aren't taught that your choices are between you and what you find holy. And I really value that about what we find here. We believe that we can honor the past and move into the future. We believe that science and reason can coexist happily, and that everything is better when they coexist. We believe, most importantly, that no one is outside a circle of love and compassion. So we hope that your spirit and your heart and your mind are refreshed when we're here together today. We come together this Sunday morning and every Sunday morning, not because we share a creed, but because we share a promise. We promise to love one another and to hold one another with compassion as we search on our spiritual journey. So whoever you are, wherever you are, whomever you love, thank you so much for joining us today. And now we have a moment for announcement. If anyone has an announcement, please come on up, use the microphone, and introduce yourself in case not everybody knows everyone's name.
Hi, I'm Kay, and the membership committee is putting on a picnic this Saturday. It's going to be our annual potluck, which we have converted into a picnic so we can have fun outside. It's going to be at 3 o'clock this Saturday, and I'm coming around with a sign-up sheet for food. Thanks. See you later.
Hi, I'm Monica. Happy Mother's Day. Like this. So the picnic next weekend, if we're gonna do some activities, anybody can do them. We're gonna do reverse tie-dyeing, which is like a darker colored shirt or piece of clothing, and then we're gonna use bleach to reverse tie-dye. It's really cool and quick and easy. And we're also gonna have some like fun relay games and bubbles and stuff for the kids. So if anybody wants to help me plan any of that, let me know. Also, I have an announcement for June 25th, I'll be running service that day, and it's going to be a very collaborative service. So it's all about creativity and art and music, and I'm really looking for at least 4 people to help me during service to highlight something that you've done that exemplifies our 4th principle, which is, I've heard of them, a free and responsible search for truth in meaning. So art helps you do that. So it's going to be a celebration of art and creativity, and we're going to have a gallery after that service in the either outside or in the social hall. So if you don't want to participate in service necessarily, but you want to showcase your art pieces out at the gallery, that works too. So there is a sign-up sheet right outside this door on the bulletin board, so please sign up. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mary, and this is the last time I'm going to announce this, but voting ends today for our new sign. The choices are out there on the wall, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, along with the ballots. You pick your first and second choice, and they go in that box back there where the surveys also go. And I'm taking them home with me after when I go home on Sunday or today. And we'll announce the winner of the picnic. So if you haven't voted, please vote, and everybody, it's open to everybody.
Hi, I'm Miranda, and I'm reminding you that we are collecting school supplies for the cluster. And I'm gonna read the list again, but I'm also gonna put the list out at the basket, I promise this time. Yes. Getting good at that. So anyway, here we go. It's gonna be fun. We're taking donations of binders, calculators, colored pencils, composition books, crayons, erasers, folders, glue sticks, highlighters, index cards, markers, pencils, pencil cases, pens, rulers, and spiral notebooks. These the cluster will make into school bags for kids, I'm guessing for the summer. I think that it's something that ends up being quite an expense for parents, and that's how we're helping people who are challenged in terms of replacement. Thank you. Also, there's a early deadline in June, so this month was going to will not be on last Sunday of May. So if you're going to donate, it will have to be soon. Thank you.
Great, thank you, everyone. Now I'd like to introduce our guest speaker. We are so blessed and lucky to have D Stillwater with us again. D Stillwater is a science ambassador and an author, and he writes and speaks about profound insights from natural reality, insights that drive paradigm shifts and cultural awakening. His work springs from JD's love of science and his gift for making difficult concepts graspable for non-scientists. He recently began serving as an officer of the Religious Naturalist Association, which develops and promotes a religious naturalist orientation. So JD, welcome.
Thank you, Emily. It's a real privilege to be here. And happy Mother's Day. It's awesome to see so many parents and kids here this morning. That's great. So our opening words for the service this morning they come from Diego Valeria, who writes, "You who have an eye for miracles, regard the bud now appearing on the bare branch of the fragile young tree. It's a mere dot, a nothing. But already it's a flower, already a fruit, already its own death and resurrection." And who is lighting the chalice this morning? I was told, can you tell me your name? Henry Jack? Is that right? Henry Jack. Yeah, all right, thank you, Henry. Our chalice lighting words, as Henry lights it, come from Barbara J. Peskin. We light this chalice for the tenacity of earth and its creatures, for endings that are beginnings, for beginnings that are endings, for the circle, for the spiral, the web, the egg, the orbit, the center, the seed, the flower, the fruit, the opening, the death, the release, the seed. Beautiful. Thank you. Our opening hymn this morning is 1000, Morning Has Come, and I believe that Justine has a video we can sing along with. Let's start with the computer. For 1000, you rise in body or spirit. Still doing it? Okay, I'm gonna ask all the young and the young at heart to come join me up front, and I have a story for you called Magic Recipes. That, hopefully everyone can. You all hear me? Yeah. So I have a story for you called Magic Recipes. It's a story that I wrote. It's pretty fun and exciting. Have you ever written a story? Or made up a story? Yeah. It is not yet published, so I'm afraid that we don't have pictures for it yet. It will have pictures eventually. But it's also a story for big people too, because there are some things in the story that even adults, a lot of adults don't. And I have some props we'll get out of it. It's called Magic Recipes. Zara knew she was dreaming. She had fallen asleep thinking about cookies. Warm chocolate chip cookies, soft in the middle and crunchy around the edges. Zara knows that if you want to make a nice batch of yummy cookies, you need three things. You need some ingredients like flour and sugar and butter. And you also need a recipe that tells you how to turn those ingredients into something yummy, right? Into cookies. But the third thing you need is you need someone to make the cookies. Someone like Zara, who mixes the ingredients together and puts the cookies in the oven. But here in her dream was this crinkly old woman, looking like Earth herself, gently and kindly pressing a small red stone into Zara's hand, saying, "This is a magic recipe. It can turn into something yummy all by itself." Zara put the stone under her pillow and went back to dreaming of warm cookies. And when Zara awoke in the morning, she felt under her pillow and was astonished to find a small red stone, still warm from the old woman's hand. Doubtful, She padded into the kitchen in her pajamas. She pulled out the tin of flour from the cupboard by the stove and the sugar, and she put them on the table with some butter and a carton of eggs. And then she carefully set the red stone in the middle of them and went back down the hall to brush her teeth. When she came back to the kitchen, the ingredients were all just where she had left them. She sighed. The dream seemed so real and the kind old woman so nice. She had hoped the red stone would turn the ingredients into cookies by magic. Dad came into the kitchen. His eyebrow went up when he saw the ingredients. The eyebrow that means, what's going on here? Zara sighed again and explained about the old woman, the red stone, and the magic recipe. Dad's eyebrow went even higher. Did you think the magic recipe would turn itself into cookies as long as the ingredients were nearby? Zara nodded and looked at the floor. Dad picked up the red stone from the counter and said, Zara, I don't know about the old woman in your dream, but this is a magic recipe, not for cookies, but for something much more interesting. Now Zara lifted her eyebrows. Dad said, how about we make some cookies while we talk about it? Zara smiled. Chocolate chip? Sure, Dad said. Dad found a recipe and they began measuring and mixing the flour, the butter, the chocolate chips, and the other ingredients. Dad said, Zara, you know that most recipes are just words that tell us how to make something. We have to find the ingredients, measure them like the recipe says, mix them just right, and bake them at the right temperature. Everybody knows that. Zara popped a chocolate chip into her mouth. Dad ignored her, saying, we could make cookies without a recipe, but the recipe can't make cookies without us. It would take some really special magic for a recipe to choose the ingredients all by itself and measure them and mix them just right without any people doing it. Zara frowned. I guess it was pretty silly to think a little stone could turn itself into cookies. I just wanted it to be real. Dad said, but Zara, that special magic does happen sometimes, and magic recipes are real. Even most grown-ups don't know about it, but it's true. Magic recipes not only have the directions for making something, but they can find just the right ingredients and measure them and mix them and make something new and wonderful all by themselves. Zara's eyes got wide. Do they make cookies? Dad smiled. Much better than cookies. Magic recipes make things that are alive. Dad held up the red stone. This is a magic recipe for a beautiful plant, a bean plant. Most people call this a red kidney bean, but if you put it in the ground, it will begin gathering ingredients from the dirt and the air and make itself come alive. It will grow taller than you, and it's a seed. And seeds are magic recipes. Zara thought about that while the cookies were in the oven. She said, are all seeds magic? Dad said, yes. Remember the acorns we found last spring with the leaves and roots growing right out of them? Acorns are magic recipes for giant oak trees. Eggs are magic recipes too, for chickens and robins and lots of other animals. Even you came from a magic recipe. Zara's eyes grew big. Me? I thought Mom made me. Now it was Dad's turn to think for a minute. Finally, he said, you grew inside Mom's belly using ingredients from her, but you did the choosing and the measuring and the mixing to make yourself ready to be born. The timer on the oven dinged and Zara jumped up. The cookies are done. Thought about magic recipes while she and Dad munched on fresh-smelling chocolate chip cookies, soft in the middle and crunchy around the edges, still warm from the oven. Dad pointed to Zara's cookie. You're still making yourself. That cookie is an ingredient that in a few hours will be part of your body. And only the magic recipe inside you knows how to measure and mix it with the rest of it. Zara liked the idea that she had come from the same kind of magic that turns acorns into oak trees and eggs into robins. She wondered about how magic recipes choose and measure the ingredients. That part seemed truly magic to her. That night she was still wondering about it when the old earth woman again came and sat on her bed, smiling a twinkly dream woman smile. Zara asked, "Did you come from a magic recipe?" The woman gently patted Zara's hand. Every one. Sorry. This is really meaningful to me personally. And I hope by the end of the service you feel some of that too. The old woman said, everyone and everything comes from a magic recipe. Zara sat up. Things come from magic recipes too? Dad said only plants and animals. The old woman's eyes glittered like moonlight. There are many kinds of recipes, Zara. Some for stars, some for mountains, some for whales. Even Earth herself made herself from a magic recipe, and then made recipes for living things like you. Zara tried to imagine a magic recipe that could make everything on Earth, even new magic recipes. She remembered that even now, the recipe inside her was making her stronger, and smarter, and taller. She smiled sleepily, lay back on her pillow, dreaming of blue eggs, little red beads, and of course, warm chocolate chip cookies, soft in the middle, crunchy around the edges. The end. From perfections, play that because I have magic recipes for you. If you'd like to take 3 of these, take 3 because sometimes they don't actually grow. And if you'd like, you and your parents together can put them in some potting soil or dirt, keep them well watered. I did that a few weeks ago, and I have this beautiful bee plant that is making bee pods right at my house right now. So you can do it too. Go ahead and take 2 or 3. 4 is okay. Here, let's get a big handful out of some other people. Oh, so learning the house. Okay, yeah, it's good to help your neighbor get in grab someone's great. And parents, just so you know, these are red kidney beans from the store. I just bought pound beans, and they do sprout.
And now it's time for the morning offering. Eric Hewitt reminds us that when we give, we say yes to something we value. I said this a couple weeks ago, but it's still true. It's not just true on Sunday. Everything that you spend, oh my gosh, there's pumpkins out there. Sorry, everybody, the door's not right. Okay.
Don't want that, so that's good.
Sorry about that. That's not just true on Sunday. Forbes magazine tells us that whatever you spend on is what you value. Forbes magazine, they know about money. So no matter who you are, what you have, your resources are limited. They're not just money, but attention and care and time, especially time. The fact that you come and you spend your limited resources here means so much, especially time. So in the spirit of trust and generosity, we're going to gratefully accept this morning's offering.
Our reading this morning comes from Langston Hughes from his poem, I believe, The Earth Song. He writes, "It's an earth song, and I've been waiting long for an earth song. It's a spring song, and I've been waiting long for a spring song. Strong as the shoots of a new plant, strong as the bursting of new buds, strong as the coming of the first child from its mother's womb. It's an earth song, a body song, a spring song. I have been waiting long for this spring song." I'm gonna let you digest that for a minute while I turn on screen sharing. All right. Well, it's spring. And spring came early in Harrisburg this year, probably here too. Daffodils came up in February for us, actually bloomed in February, which is kind of scary and not what I want to talk about this morning. Whenever it comes, I often experience spring with a big sigh of relief, you know, some of those layers of heavy clothing come off and I can move more freely. And the snow and ice give way to spiky green rockets shooting up out of the soil, which then begins a countdown to riotous color, followed by hyacinth ecstasy just drifting on the wind like free hallucinogens or something, but you know, way better. Not that I would know. Little peeps begin to fill the social, not those peeps. Peeps begin to fill the social media feeds of those lucky enough to have chickens. And for much of my life, that was me. I hatched my first chickens at age 8, and just about every year after that until I went off to college. My little brother hatched ducks, and my sister kept geese. So every spring, we would fire up the incubator and fill it with eggs, multicolored chicken eggs, larger, greasy-looking duck eggs, and big, elegant goose eggs. And you know, chicken eggs take about 21 days to hatch. Ducks take around 28 days, geese about 32, which meant that after 3 weeks of excited anticipation, we had nonstop awe and wonder for 11 or 12 days every spring. But you know, you never get quite 100%. There are always some eggs that don't hatch. Sometimes there are stragglers that hatch a few days later than you expect. So we would always wait till like 35 days. Remember, the geese are the longest at 32. We wait a few extra days just to be sure. But there were always some duds in there. There was another reason to procrastinate turning off the incubator. No one wants to mess with those duds because they're rotten eggs. And rotten eggs can explode. And if any of that gets on you, I guarantee the smell will cost you your most recent meal. So this disposal task of what's left in the incubator usually fell to my mom. Sorry to admit that on Mother's Day, but it did. And so she would carefully carry the whole incubator out into a field and then gingerly toss each egg as far as she could without exerting too much stress on the shell, right? So it wouldn't explode. So one year, she picks up the last egg, a duck egg, and as her windup brought it near her right ear, it peeped. You couldn't even believe it. It peeped again. And she put it back in the incubator, carried it back into the house, and plugged it back into the wall, just to, you know, like, what's going on here? A day later, mind you, this is almost 10 days after the normal duck incubation period, an odd little duckling hatched out like a boss. And it was too much younger than its siblings to be raised, along with him, so it became kind of a pet. And it was a pretty special duck, and I'll explain why in a few minutes. If you've seen birds hatch, or even watched a person being born, you've probably felt this deep magic and mystery as they emerge. New life emerging. Well, this is all pretty well described by molecular biochemistry at this point. So in that sense, it's not quote unquote magical or mysterious at all. And therein, I think, lies the quandary and also the opportunity of being alive at this time in the history of science and science knowledge. We in our generations rest on centuries of astounding success at describing the mechanical details of cause and effect in this universe, down to the constituent parts of atoms so small that a single grain of table salt, we know, contains about as many atoms as there are blades of grass on the earth. Astounding things that we now know. And that's just science, right? We take things apart to see how they work. And then we take those parts apart and so on, reducing every object and phenomena down to its constituent parts. And this has been phenomenally successful. But some things, some really important aspects of reality get lost when you reduce a whole system to its individual parts. For example, is surface tension a real thing? Of course, it's real. The water strider can feel it, can stand on it. But is it a thing, an object? It's not. It's not a thing, though it acts like one. And it's not made of things either. Surface tension is a phenomenon that happens when lots of water molecules interact with one another at the boundary between the liquid water and the air above it. It's made of relationships between the molecules, not the molecules themselves. If you add a drop of soap, the surface tension disappears. The molecules are all still there, but the soap acts like some kind of homewrecker. It interrupts the relationship between those water molecules. Science has been so successful at revealing reality's mechanism that most of us still walk around with this mechanistic Newtonian worldview of the universe as a kind of clock ticking away. And when the season hand ticks around to spring, click, whir, and out come the cuckoo bees. Right? And this is why so many of our traditionally religious neighbors and friends are wary and weary of science. They hear science saying it's all nothing but molecules, and it's nothing but atoms and the laws of physics, and reducing, there's that word again, reducing everything to the mechanical, to the mundane. Some scientists are still talking like that, but it's only half the story. Because many of the things we take for granted as being real things are actually more like surface tension. They're made of relationships that disappear when you take things apart. They're not made of parts, and they're not mechanical. They arise out of relationships, but they show up as things in their own right. Things like planets and plants and people. What I'm touching on here is the relatively new science of emergence, which studies properties. I'm slide ahead. There is new science of emergence, studies properties of matter that aren't themselves matter. They're not made of matter, but that arise out of interactivity, out of relationships. So this is my cousin Joe. He's quite the looker. I told him he should have gone into modeling. What's that? There is a hand there too, somewhere in the picture. Before emergence, we could say truthfully that Joe is nothing but a bunch of atoms. It's still true. The only things there are atoms. But if we say nothing but a bunch of atoms, is to neglect a whole galaxy of things that are also true about Joe. awareness, flight, self-regulation, sexuality, and many more, not least of which is his very roosterness. You know, those exact same atoms could be reassembled to make a dog, or a compost pile, or a smoothie. Kind of a salty smoothie, but. So, is the rooster the atoms, or is the rooster something that emerges from a particular arrangement of atoms? That unique arrangement hints at what scientists call constraints. You only get surface tension under the right conditions. Liquid water at the surface, no soap. You only get roosters when the atoms are constrained by the patterns built into Joe's unique genetics, his magic recipe. Under the right conditions, from nothing but atoms comes something else, something new and different from the parts, a fine-looking rooster. Biologist Ursula Goodenough uses the Mozart metaphor in her book, The Sacred Depths of Nature. She reminds us that a Mozart sonata can be understood as nothing but a bunch of hammers hitting strings in a piano. But remember, the strings and hammers aren't the music. They just give rise to the music. The music is something else that arises from nothing but hammers hitting strings. Also, the music is no less beautiful and soul-enriching just because we know the mechanics of how a piano. I understand the basic biochemistry of development. I've taught it. And when I think about emergence, there remain two aspects of it that seem truly magical to me, if not miraculous. Okay, it's actually three, but the third magic is the child of the first two. So let me explain. The first is this idea that a whole can be more than the sum of its parts. Wow. This is like 1 + 1 = rainbows. It defies that mechanistic worldview. Emergence often seems to require large numbers of parts. So for example, 1 amoeba + 1 amoeba really is nothing but 2 amoebas. But if you keep adding them, at some point it becomes a slime mold. And what that is a bunch of amoebas and a whole slew of something else, like group coordination, specialization into fruiting body, the ability to solve complex mazes. You do a little reading on this, it'll blow your mind. And if you give those amoebas a few 100 million years, they might evolve organs and brains, and there's something else's of pianos and poetry and poetry. Which brings me to the second magic, the one about recipes. Reductionism looks at things and asks, what parts is this made of and where did they come from? Carl Sagan famously referred to this reductionist process by saying, if you wish to make an apple pie from scratch, you must first invent the universe. So that usually gets a laugh. So that reductionist process works backwards. You trace apples back to apple trees, then to apple tree ancestors, then to the first living cells, then to the origins of planets and matter, and so on, back to the beginning. But Dr. Sagan was almost giddy as he said this because his generation of scientists was the first one to be able to tell the story forwards. A story we now know variously as big history, everybody's story, the great story, the epic of evolution, Big Bang cosmology. There are a bunch of names for it, but it's the story of the emergence of everything. So that second magic that I'm zigzagging towards here is self-assembly. It's wild enough to me that a system can be more than the sum of its parts, but it's downright mind-blowing to contemplate the self-assembly of such systems. And as the dream woman in the story hinted, it's not just living things that self-assemble. All this stuff, from baby ducks to human society, are what atoms assemble themselves into under the right conditions. And here's where the two magics make a baby together. Because we now know that the universe didn't have any matter at the beginning. The universe began with energy. insanely bright light, and nothing else. The first matter condensed out of that light during the first second after time began. But there was no matter. There were no atoms there at the very beginning. As this great mystic and prophet revealed, matter is a form of energy, tremendously condensed. And it exhibits different properties from energy, emergent properties like mass and inertia and gravity. Energy is not a thing. Energy is potential. It's action. It's verbs rather than nouns. Somehow nouns condensed out of verbs in the beginning. Things emerged from non-things, from actions, from light. Now, I told you a lie of omission a few seconds ago because light wasn't quite all there was at the beginning of time. There was also an invisible set of constraints, what we call the laws of physics. They were there too. So in that first less than a second after time began, and constrained by patterns built into reality itself, from nothing but energy, light, emerged the something else of matter. There's nothing mundane about that. To make a 14 billion year long story short, as if that's possible, everything in the universe today is an emergent expression of energy, interacting with itself in increasingly complex and interesting ways. That light energy that came out of nothing at the beginning of time, you could think of as the ultimate magic recipe, an everything seed from which it self-assembled an entire universe, constrained by physical laws, and in time spawned other countless self-assembling miracles, things like stars and galaxies, planets, living things like plants that eat sunlight and turn it into daffodils and ducklings and dignitaries. So for me, the profound meaning of spring, these slides are not cooperating. There we go. All right. For me, the profound meaning of spring is that the miracle of emergence is coming up all around me, literally shooting up out of warm soil. Newborn oak trees waving, no oak leaves waving at me like little children. Wild turkey chicks wandering my neighborhood with their mothers. Millions of magic recipes all unfolding like little universes everywhere I look. And you know, each one is unique. Every creature that reproduces sexually, which is pretty much all plants and animals, each individual is genetically unique. Every one of those seeds and eggs and red kidney beans in my bag it can self-assemble into something completely new. A combination of traits for that individual the universe has never seen before. Speaking of unique individuals, there is a reason that odd duckling of ours took so long to hatch. It's because we had two kinds of ducks running free on our farm, Rouens and Muscovies. Those aren't two different breeds of ducks. Those are two different species of ducks. So she was an interspecies cross, an interspecies duckling, a rare and sterile mule duck. And when she grew up, and when she started laying eggs, they didn't have any yolks in them. They were just duck eggs filled with egg white. Amazing. So spring is a time of year when we often celebrate Passover, and some of us celebrate Passover and Easter, and then Earth Day, usually after that, often right around each other in the same general time frame. The spring holidays, celebrating freedom from bondage and resurrection and humble stewardship, respectively. And to me, in a universe built on relationships, and the surprising something else's that can arise from those relationships, all three holidays just seem perfectly situated in springtime. In his song, Holy Now, Peter Mayer, who also wrote Blue Boat Home, which you probably have sung before, and we're going to sing in a few minutes here, he sings, Wine from water is not so small, but an even better magic trick is that anything's here at all. Everything is holy now. Spring brings such an embarrassment of holy riches that we can trip over them on our way to the mall. You know, there's no spring in the tropics. In the southern hemisphere, it's autumn now. Autumn will come here in time too. So if your soul could use a little emergent holiness, now's the time. Spring is a gift, but only certain latitudes get to open it. Don't leave it unopened just because you have shopping to do or meetings to attend. Right now, right out there, new expressions of cosmic creativity that have never existed before, showing up for their brief time in the sun, on a lonely blue dot of a planet in a terrible vastness of mostly empty space. But get out there and soak it in. Watch the seeds and eggs create something new, something wondrous from nothing but atoms in relationship with each other. Be reminded that that same magic lives and works inside you, with every breath, every bite, and every beverage. Divine light from the beginning of time, expressing itself in and through you here this morning. Get your hands in the dirt. Plant some magic recipes. Do it with kids and tell them about the magic and the uniqueness of each of those seeds or eggs. Heck, you can even eat some of these nasty things now that they're too cheap to pass up. For more fun, microwave them first. Just don't let spring come and go without letting it nourish you deep inside. Take spring to heart. You never know what something else might emerge from nothing but a relationship with nature. May it be so. Thanks for inviting me this morning, and happy Mother's Day. Now we get to sing Move On Home, which is 10:64 and we'll feel him. That is a very difficult piece, even if you're not sight reading. Thank you. Let us live our lives in radical amazement, attuned to the everyday miracles all around us, emerging. Let us gift ourselves with some quality time amongst them. The green skyward ones, the fluffy peeping ones, the pungent soil ones, and the unpredictable human ones. Go in peace and return in love. Thank you very much.